Hey fellow backyard boyers, Nick here. I've been getting a lot of requests for fighting knives and daggers. So today, I'm going to show you how to turn an old 12-inch file into a fighting dagger. This dagger is inspired by the different daggers that were used in World War II. It's got influences from different styles, coming from issued knives, custom knives, and some of the examples of homemade knives that soldiers were taking to war with them. So here it is. Let's get started. The first step is to take our file and anneal or soften the metal. By heating it with my propane torch till it's red hot and then putting it in a bucket of perlite overnight, we're able to soften the metal and get it to the point where we can easily use other files to shape it, and we can also cut it with a hacksaw. Now that the file is annealed, the next step is to sketch out the design of the blade. The blade is 9 inches long, and we're going to mark about a 5-inch tang on this knife. Now that the design is laid out, I'm using the cutoff wheel and the angle grinder to refine my shape. Once I get it as close as I can with the cutoff wheel, I switch to the grinding wheel and finish up the profile of the knife and clean up the transition to the tang. I want the tang to be about the same width as the existing tang on the file. Now that the knife is ground to shape, I'm going to start roughing in my bevels. But to do this, I'm taking the angle grinder and just taking material off of all 4 corners, working one side mostly at a time until it's mostly roughed down, and then I'm just trying to balance everything out. I want the edges to be nice and uniform and centered. I also want the grind lines to meet in the middle and be centered down the blade. Now that the bevels on the blade are ground, you want to continue grinding the same bevels onto the tang of the knife. Take a file and smooth everything out. With long, even strokes, we're cleaning off the surface of the knife, flattening everything out, making everything uniform, and preparing it for hand polishing. You want to make sure that at this point when you're done with the file, your edges are even and almost sharp, and the central ridges are nice and crisp. Once the filing's done, everything's smooth and all the grinding marks are removed, I start sanding using a sanding block from about 80 grit to about 1000 grit. Now this is just sort of a pre-sanding. You want to get all of the big scratches out while you can, because it's easier to get it out now while the steel is still soft, rather than when we harden and temper it. Now it's time for the heat treat. Since I'm not 100% sure what kind of steel is in this file, I'm going to treat it just like a simple carbon steel. I start by heating it up with my propane torch just until the point where it no longer sticks to a magnet. Once it gets non-magnetic, I heat it up just a little bit longer and then harden it by putting it vertically into my quench tank, which is just a container with oil in it. Once it comes out of the quench tank, the blade will be very hard and brittle. I sand it lightly just so I can see the bare metal, and then temper it, which will remove a little bit of the brittleness, by placing it in my oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour to 2 hours, depending on the color I see. I'm going for a darker straw color, which will be sort of yellow gold. Once that's finished, I clean off the metal again, and then with a torch, just heat up the tang of the knife and about an inch of the bottom of the blade. And I want to see the colors change. That will tell me that the steel is softer. That will give me some strength in the tang, and it will keep it from breaking at the transition between the blade and the tang. After putting the final polish on the knife, it's time to work on the handle. The guard is 2.5 inches long and the butt plate is 2 inches long. What you want to do is mark the center of each. Then with a drill bit or punch, start a hole in the middle. From there, I'm going to use a coping saw and files to get it so that each fits perfectly onto the knife. Once these parts are fitted, you can take it to your angle grinder or with a saw and file and bring the guards down to shape. To make the stacked leather handle, I start by taking pieces of leather that are a little larger than what I need for the finished handle. With a knife, I cut the space where the tang will go, and this needs to be a slightly different size for each spacer because the tang tapers. Once I have all of my spacers, about 30 total, I can start stacking them onto the handle. I'm putting a little bit of contact cement just to hold everything together and make it more solid so that the spacers don't move around. Place the brass piece back onto it and with a hammer gently peen the end of the tang. This will expand the tang and hold everything in place. Once you've done that, it's time to take it back to the angle grinder with the flat sanding disc and smooth down the handle and bring it to shape. Once you're happy with the shape of the handle, then you can go with progressively finer sanding discs until you've reached the finish of the handle that you want. Once the handle is smooth, I apply brown leather dye to give my handle a nice aged look and to darken up the leather. Once that's done, I sand a little bit more and apply some boiled linseed oil. Done, I give the knife a final buffing and it's finished and ready to go. Here's the dagger all finished up. I hope you enjoyed making this knife with me today. If you have any suggestions for other knife videos or other videos in general you'd like to see, just let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in more knife making videos or other projects, you can check out my channel. I've got lots of other videos on making all sorts of different things. And I've also written several books on different topics. And I'll put a link in the description to those below. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.